Get ready, Staten Island.
The Ferry Hawks are back at SIUH Community Park July 7th to the 12th for a 6-game series against the High Point Rockers. Wednesday, July 8th with first pitch at 6:30. It's Woo Wednesday in collaboration with the Wu-Tang Clan. The Ferry Hawks transform into the Shaolin Hawks. Thursday, July 9th, first pitch is at 6:30. It's Thirsty Thursday with $5 Bud and Bud Light drafts.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me. Taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
The mayor and what's going on in this city, although he did win, and I've heard Hank Sheinkopf say he's pretty good at, I guess, getting people to believe what he was selling. Of course, he's a liar. He just is a liar. And we're starting to see that, I guess. So with that said, here he is, become one of my favorite guests on this station, Hank Sheinkopf. Hank, good morning, pal. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me on today. Glad to hear your voice.
Thank you, man. I love having you on this show, too. I appreciate that, Hank. Thank you. I want to go back. We'll do this in chronological order. So we'll start with the budget. I had City Councilman Frank Morano on this show earlier. I've been having text conversations all morning long with Council Lady Vicky Palladino. I love both of them. $126 billion. And we couldn't find a way to add one cop, let alone 600, or a fifth firefighter. There's all kinds of stories about sensitivity training and was Menon responsible, yes or no? Was Jesse Tisch responsible, yes or no? But for me, it all goes back to the mayor. What are your thoughts on this budget and why the city, we got the money, why couldn't we add one cop?
Well, the reality is we don't have the money for anything. There's a $12 billion budget hole in that budget. A lot of us on the union side have been talking about this for at least 2 years. It is a serious problem. The state is going to be in very serious fiscal trouble next year. The city will be in very serious fiscal trouble right after the first of the year. And this is all nonsense. And what the mayor is going to do is blame the state, which is kind of idiotic and absurd. The whole is
But wait, how could he blame the state? Correct me if I'm wrong, Hank. You're much smarter than I am. When Kathy Hochul gave him somewhere between a $5 and $8 billion bailout.
She gave an $8 billion bailout, but it's not sufficient to meet the problem. Why? Because he keeps adding numbers to existing programs or new programs that aren't necessary. The costs are higher than they should be. He's not cutting any place. He's not making room in there for a union contract, which he's going to have to do. He's got union contracts coming up. There's no new cops in that budget. The costs of that are going to be overwhelming to people. I don't think we understand how serious this is. And this is not a joke. You can't print money in the basement of City Hall. They tried it in 1974, 73, and the end result was 1975, which was the bankruptcy of New York City.
You know, I saw a documentary, Hank, a couple of days ago, because I'm younger, and it was about the Joe Colombo / Joey Gallo assassinations in New York City.
Right.
And Joey, of course, got murdered outside Umberto's Clam House. But in that documentary, they showed you what New York looked like in that era you're talking about, mid-1970s. Just about every retail store out of business, building after building blown out and vacant. I mean, it just looked awful. Are you telling me that's what we're going to look like here in the not-so-distant future?
I don't know if that's going to look that way, Sid. It's an important question you're raising. What we are going to have is cuts in services, and we're going to have a bailout of some kind. That's a fact of life. The mayor wants that to happen because he can blame the state, and the feds, he's going to have to go to the federal government, or the governor's going to have to impose a financial control board at some point if this continues, and they won't want to go to the feds because they got a problem with Trump, and Trump's the only one that can bail them out. They're going to have to go to the Federal Reserve probably for an instant bailout loan. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be very, very complicated. The best book to read on the fiscal crisis, there are a lot of them, is a book now by Richard Farley that's out about, I guess, 6 to 8 months, where he talks about the fiscal crisis of 75 and what the implications are. This is very, very serious stuff. And those of us who work for unions were involved with, I work for a lot of unions, including cops, but New York City detectives, which I'm proud to say. This is a very, 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 very serious issue that no one is paying attention to in the way that they should. They're going to be very sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I know the cop unions, Hank, because I'm very close with Scott Monroe. He runs the DEA. Even the retired detectives, I'm very, very close, as you know, with Vincent Balalang. He runs the sergeants union. So I know the cops unions hate him. They hate him. I'm going to say it. They won't. Maybe they will. They hate him. Yeah. But the rest of the unions around the city, I had a guy in here, I forgot his name already. You know, people love him. He's in charge of, like, the horse and buggies and transportation. And he was trying to sell me on Mamdani. I nearly kicked him out of the studio before Mamdani even won. So you tell me, Hank, on the whole, how do unions feel, the majority, about this mayor?
Look, they have to come in for contract negotiations after the first year. Some of those contracts are up sooner than others. But again, if you look at the votes on the mayor's decision not to fund pensions going forward, which he did, which is very dangerous. It happened, I think, in 73. And it was one of the factors that led to the fiscal crisis and city bankruptcy in 75, for which in many ways we've not recovered. The city university doesn't belong to the city. The community colleges don't belong to the city with their own problems. The hospital system really doesn't belong to the city anymore. I mean, we had freestanding health clinics. We had free university. I mean, we had a lot of things that created the middle class. That's gone. So if you want to look to the crisis that we've created, that we have in front of us about affordability, look to 75 and bad management by politicians. I work for a lot of other municipal unions, including Local 237 Teamsters, in which I'm proud to have done that for a long time. And I can tell you, just talking to people, that they know they've got to go to contract negotiations next year, so they're not going to take them on a lot in public. But this is not a good set of circumstances.
It really isn't. Hank Sheinkopf here. And Hank, I'm reading this morning about all these vacant, stabilized apartments in the thousands, maybe as many as 7,000. And then he got his wish about freezing the rents. And I'm not a real estate person. I'm not that smart, but smarter people than me are telling me that will absolutely lead to a disaster in terms of the financial implications. So you tell me those two things, how bad are those for the city?
You can't do the kind of things he's doing in the way he's doing them and expect there to be good outcome. It doesn't work that way. There are other ways to create affordable housing rather than going into present housing supply and destroying it. You could come up with all kinds of tax incentives to help landlords upgrade properties. What you're going to have is a real disaster here, because the properties need repair. They need constant upkeep. Guess what? If you cut income, where do you think the money's going to come from to do the repairs and keep up those properties in the way that you need? It doesn't come out of the air. Insurance costs are up, fuel costs are up, profit margins are likely down overall, and demand is high. So what do people expect? And you can blame the great generation that thinks that somehow they've been done a dirty service, even though they haven't lived that long to do any service, the great gentrifiers, for what we're experiencing to some extent. If you look at the neighborhoods that they've gentrified, including portions of Washington Heights, where Espaillat lost that election 2 weeks ago, right? You look at that area, what you see is people who've never borne a burden or paid a price, suddenly pricing everybody else out. Bushwick ditto, on. The Great Park Slope renewal of 50 to 60 years, they priced people out. The blue-collar working class that lived in neighborhoods like that is gone. So what are we talking about?
You're right, it is gone. Park Slope and Dumbo, all those fancy Brooklyn neighborhoods, they may as well call that Manhattan at this point, let's be honest. Yeah, I mean, they started like 2 million. I had Bruce Blakeman back on the show yesterday. Bruce and I are very close. We speak every day, and I believe I was either the first or second person he even told, dating back a year ago, he's going to run for governor. And all you keep hearing, and I brought this up to him, was, it's a lot of pressure, that the only way the state survives is if he wins, because the current governor, Kathy Hochul, is scared to death of Mamdani. And even though she says a lot of things now which kind of disagree with Mamdani, the consensus is if she wins, they'll be like two peas in a pod. Do you agree that Bruce Blakeman may be the only savior for the state?
Well, let's go back. Here are some of the realities. The DSA, and they're not Democrats, they're socialists, and who knows what they really are, has a simple plan, which is take over the legislature, control the reapportionment in 2028, ultimately get enough people in Congress to make sure that they can change the Constitution of the United States to make Mamdani or someone like that the president. She's not born in this country, and they can't do it unilaterally, so they've got to change the Constitution. That's the long-term plan. Destroy the economy and destroy the state of Israel and democracies throughout the world. That's the job. The question is, are they going to get to do it? New York State is ground zero. The money's here, the action's here, the media's here. So what you want to do is you want to destroy the state. Now, if you don't have somebody who's going to stop him, or going to stand up to him, or isn't afraid of being elected, or legislature that's not afraid of being reelected, you're going to have a disaster.
That's the bottom line.
Otherwise, is fooling themselves.
Yeah.
They're absolutely fooling themselves.
Why do you think my friend President Trump has chosen this path where he goes out of his way to compliment Mamdani? There's got to be a great plan, some chess game he's playing. I love Trump. You know I do, Hank, and I feel badly criticizing him, but I do. I'm trying to figure out, why do you think he does that?
Look, it's really simple. The city's going to have to come back to the president if this continues in the way that we suspect it will, for a bailout. Trump is in charge of this game, and what he's doing is telling this nice young fella who has no experience of doing anything except for growing up, he's telling him that, by the way, fella, I'm really in charge or not. So smile, tap dance, have a good time.